Look, I'm not paying you to make fun of me.
Finish.
No, I'm paying you to, you know, capture my visage. In answer to your question, it was an instant overhead, but it was not what Dragon Ball players would call
Battle 1.
a fuzzy start or a fuzzy setup, because I did not force them to stand up. I just smacked them with the overhead. Did they? They really removed fuzzy setups altogether? Like, they're gone? That is interesting. How is Dragon Ball Season 3 looking? How are the top tiers from Season 2? Did any of them survive? Or did they get blasted pretty hard? Bardock got buffed? Oh, really? Is that a true story? How is that possible? Yeah, I can imagine that the implementation of multiple assists would change everything. Right. Because it was quite a common practice in Dragon Ball FighterZ to pick a character just for their assist. Which, you know, it happened in Marvel too, right? But it happened a lot more in Dragon Ball because characters only had one assist available. So, like, total number of assists was much lower, right? So, you know, something like Vegeta was, or Super Saiyan Vegeta, there just weren't that many characters that had an assist like that, right? But now that there are 3 assists per character, if you want, you know, like a beam assist or something, you have a lot more options than you did before, right? So you don't have to be like, well, I want a beam assist, so I guess I gotta pick Goku, right? Now you can be like, I want a beam assist, so I can pick from these 3 characters instead of just the one. I don't actually know how it works. But yeah, it seems like that's how it would shake out, and that's pretty good, right? Because it's always kind of whack in a team game when someone has to pick a character they don't really want to play just for their assist, right? Like, I think the appeal of team games is that you can build your team of characters however you want, right? You can pick your favorites or, you know, create your own unique combos. And picking a character for something as restrictive as just their assist is sad. And it led to some very interesting things happening, right? Like, we're used to seeing top tiers picked all the time. But in Dragon Ball, we saw, like, low tiers picked all the time. Just because their assists were so good, right? Like, the characters themselves weren't even that strong. But because people needed their assists, they had to play them anyway. Which is pretty funny, but also probably not something that should happen. Here's the problem with a game like Dragon Ball FighterZ. Although this might not be true for Season 3, I have a feeling that it will still be true. Dragon Ball FighterZ is a game with a very specific way that it wants you to play it. Right? Like, this is the playstyle for Dragon Ball FighterZ. It's not the only game like this. There are plenty of games that have that sort of mentality. But when you have a game like that, that's very particular about, like, what it wants you to do, you tend to have a very rigid tier list, because the question is just, whoa. I got crossed up like 3 times. The question is just, who's the best at doing that? You know what I mean? Who has the best version of these tools that this game wants me to use? For instance, in Season 2, Dragon Ball FighterZ, and I'm not an expert, right? But it seemed to me like the game was really heavily focused on Oki and mix-ups, right? Like fuzzy setups. So the question was just like, who's the best at doing that, right? Who has the best Oki? Who has the best pressure?
Finish.
Who has the strongest incoming setup? And whoever the best at those were the top tiers. And whoever wasn't good at that was the low tiers. Characters who did something else were pretty bad because the game didn't want you to do that, right? For instance, Beerus was a good example of a very non-standard character in Dragon Ball FighterZ. But he sucked, right? Because he didn't do the things that the game wanted you to do, right? Like, his thing was supposed to be like, you know, setups with projectiles. But Dragon Ball FighterZ isn't really a game where you're supposed to set up with projectiles. Same with like Frieza, right? Frieza's like a zoning character in a game where zoning doesn't exist. So of course Frieza is not very good, right? Like I said, Dragon Ball is not the only game that does this. Another great example is Mortal Kombat 11. Mortal Kombat 11 is a game that wants you to play, you know, a whiff punishing game, a strike throw pressure game, a footsie game, right? And because of that, who are the best characters? The characters who have the best control over neutral, right? The characters who can control the most space, like Johnny Cage, Cetrion, Jacko and Briggs, and the characters that have good staggers and strong normals, right? Meanwhile, characters that are kind of trying to do something else, like, you know, the grapplers or most of the zoners, according to most people anyway, are kind of left by the wayside, right?
Finish.
Because that's not really what the game wants from you. You see what I mean? I don't remember why I started talking about that or what my point was going to be, but I hope that something made sense somewhere along the way. Oh yeah, it's about tier lists. The point is, when you have a game like that, tier lists are very rigid. And because of that, I'm not surprised that some characters are just bad. And some characters will probably always be bad. Unless they make a concerted effort to broaden the amount of viable playstyles. Which they may have done in Season 3. But they also may not. Oh, that was a bad idea. Oh, he tried. They also may not have done that. We'll see. I mean, it's impossible to know for sure, right? A lot of the times when a new patch happens for a fighting game, it seems a lot more impactful than it is at first. You know what I mean? Because people are really looking for changes, and so a lot of the time people are like, whoa, it's like a whole new game, everything's so much different, all this stuff is so amazing. This character's good now, this is good now, this is good now, this is bad now. But then, after people have the game for a few months, and they look at it some more, they're like, oh, this isn't actually that good. We thought this was good, but this actually isn't as good as we thought it was. I look forward to seeing it. I really, really enjoyed watching the championships. It's interesting to see how much this game has evolved. Yeah, it's always fun to watch. That was another thing that was pretty impressive to me, was even after all this time, well, even after all this time, right? The game has been out for years. And Dragon Ball FighterZ is still just as cool to look at as it was the day it came out, right? Like, the combos are still sick, the supers are still sick, the animation is still sick.
Believe in victory. Battle 1.
Most fighting games kind of lose their shine after a while, but Dragon Ball FighterZ still looks as cool as it did when it was brand new, which is a rare feat. Yeah, Street Fighter V is definitely not held up as well. That is true. Whoa. Who thought it was a good idea to give dolls from a DB? I mean, I'm not complaining. Barry is a lot like Dolphin, though. I guess she doesn't have a teleport, so... I understand. I wish I had a home. An unfortunate side effect of playing so many fighting games is that none of them really feel like my home. I feel kind of homeless. That is not what I sound like at all. It would actually be really incredible if I top 8 2 games at once. I would love that. I'm trying to be like Justin Wong, only instead of building up a repertoire of games over the course of 10 years, I'm trying to play them all at once. I'm trying to skip the entire, like, early 2000s, right? Because that's the thing about players like Justin Wong and Sonic Fox. They play a ton of fighting games, but they learned them one at a time. And then they just moved on to the next one and retained their mastery of the previous one, right? They didn't try to do all of them at once. What I'm trying to do, I actually think, has almost never been attempted before. I can't think of a single example of someone who has attempted to play, like, several, you know, main fighting games at the same time and made a serious attempt to be a top competitor in all of them simultaneously. I mean, I'm sure someone has done it, but I don't know of any. And honestly, that's kind of worrying because I know quite a bit about fighting games. I know a lot about fighting game history, so if I can't think of a single example, then that's sort of problematic. Yeah, I mean, even Sonic Fox doesn't try to play several games at once. You know what I mean?
Believe in victory.
Sonic Fox could play a bunch of games, but even they recognize that they'll be better if they just play one or two at a time, right? Very rarely does Sonic Fox play more than like 2 games at once, right? I mean, think about what happened, right? They played Soul Calibur when it came out, and then what? Mortal Kombat was announced, instantly dropped. They're playing Granblue right now, but how long is that going to last for? They were so interested in Street Fighter V for a while, but how many tournaments have they actually entered for Street Fighter V? Same with Tekken 7. It's not because they can't, it's because they don't want to. I mean, I guess I don't know for sure why, but I believe it's because they are trying to pace themselves. Something I am not trying to do. It is a little concerning. No, look. It's a little crazy and a little arrogant of me to think that I can do this. But I think you have to be a little crazy and a little arrogant to be a good fighting game player. Right? Think about it. This is actually something I've been thinking about a lot lately. When you want to be a top-level fighting game player, what you're saying is, I'm going to play against these people who practice this game all day long, who have spent thousands of hours, who have all of the same resources that I do. And despite the fact that I'm playing the exact same game as them, I believe that I can beat them, right? I believe that I can beat all of them.
Believe in victory. Battle 1.
You see what I mean? I think you have to be a little full of yourself to be a pro fighting game player. You have to look at a collection of, you know, hundreds to thousands of people who, each and every single one of them, has put, you know, hundreds to thousands of hours into this game. And you have to be willing to say to yourself, I can beat them. Every single one of them, at once. In the same day, right? I can conquer every single one of their strategies and characters. All the work that they put in will be meaningless. So you have to be a little self-centered to be a fighting game player. Yeah, this is what I want to do. That's also true. There's a very, very important distinction to make when considering... Oh, maybe give it a second. There's a very important distinction to make. I'm trying to do this, but what I want to do is try. I don't need to succeed in order to be happy. You see what I mean? What gives my life meaning is playing fighting games and becoming as strong as I can be. I'm always aiming for the top, but if I spend my entire life on the way, that's fine with me. What matters to me is growing stronger. If I grow strong enough to, like, you know, win every game at a tournament, then cool. That would be awesome. But that's not what I need. I wasn't always like this. It used to be that the only thing that mattered to me was winning. But I don't feel that way anymore. That's how I felt while I was playing Pokken. When I played Pokken, all I cared about was victory. But it got hollow after a while, and I realized that it didn't really matter anymore whether I won or lost. And then for a while, I didn't know what I wanted. For the first year or so of Twixxie 2.0, when I was playing Soul Calibur and stuff, I had no real idea why I was doing this. You know what I mean? And actually, to make it even more anime, but I'm not making this up, I promise. I know it sounds like an anime story, but this is real. It was EVO 2019, the last EVO that I attended, that showed me what I wanted. I was watching all of the EVO Grand Finals, all of the top 8s on Sunday in the arena, and I was so in awe of the skill being displayed by the players, you know what I mean? I just couldn't believe my eyes. I was like, these people are so good at this game, and it's so incredible that they have devoted years of their life to becoming this amazing, right? This proficient. And I realized in that moment that that is what I wanted, right? Just to be good, to be a strong player. Winning tournaments is cool, and, you know, beating people is cool, and being successful is cool, but what I really, really wanted was just to be good, right? Everything else was secondary. I thought about it. I put my philosophy brain to work, and worked my way through it using the techniques that I have learned in college over the years, right? To reason my way through my brain. And the conclusion I eventually came to was that what I really, really wanted was just to be good. And if I get to be good on a stage in front of 1 million people, cool. It's, you know, no one ever sees me but a handful of opponents, right? That's also fine. Nice air to air. What matters is that I know how good I am, right? The self-improvement. And that honestly is why I'm playing so many fighting games, if you think about it. Because what matters to me is being a strong player. And the best way that I have found to become stronger is to play lots of different games. Because every game teaches you more about fighting games. Every game has its own unique challenges and skills that it emphasizes. And because of that, every game makes me better at every other game. But yeah, that's why I play so many fighting games. Because it makes me stronger.